On the orbital station Clarion 8, where the artificial gravity was set to a crushing 5 times that of Earth, no sane species ever moved fast. Even walking was a slow, calculated ballet of effort. Bones creaked, muscles trembled, and exosuits hissed with stabilizing pressure. The station's residents, tall, translucent Clerians, glided like drifting shadows, each step measured and delicate. And then there were the humans, specifically Susan Hale, xenobiology officer, and Evan Doran, mechanical systems specialist. The 2 Earthborn were assigned to Clarion 8 for a 6-month research exchange, an event the Clerians already considered recklessly optimistic. Evan was the first to horrify them. It started at 0600 hours. The Clerians, beginning their slow morning drift across the station's central corridor, witnessed a human blur, cutting through the calibrated stillness. The creature was bipedal, compact, wrapped in sweat-repellent training gear, and it was jogging. Actually jogging. In 5 times gravity. The Clerian guards froze. Their translation badges sputtered in disbelief. One whispered, "The Earth creature is attempting self-termination." Another shrieked, "No! It appears intentional." Evan didn't notice the commotion. Headphones in, breathing controlled, body adapting effortlessly to the crushing gravitational force. He moved with the practiced ease of someone who grew up sprinting through Earth's parks and mountains. His muscles flexed like braided steel cables, every stride measured but powerful. Clerians watched like one watches a star about to go supernova. A trembling junior officer tapped urgently on her console, filing a station-wide safety threat report. Category: Biological hazard threat level. Severe description: Human attempting rapid locomotion in 5G environment. May explode. Request immediate intervention. By 0700 hours, the emergency council assembled. Susan arrived late, her hair tied, lab coat levitating slightly from the stabilizers in her collar. She stepped into the chamber with the calm of a woman who'd seen this exact level of chaos at least 3 times this week. The moment she entered, every alien pointed at the projection of Evan running laps around the central corridor. "Susan Hale," the counselor rasped, "your human companion is engaging in momentum-based suicide." Susan pinched her nose. "He's exercising." A collective gasp echoed around the chamber. "Exercising?" the counselor shrieked like a cave bat struck with a plasma torch. "At that velocity? In this gravity? Are all humans mad?" "Well," Susan considered, "most of us." The aliens vibrated in terror. Evan finished his run and entered the cafeteria with the relaxed confidence of a man who had no idea an entire species had filed paperwork to stop him. Susan found him devouring 3 nutrition bars at once. "You traumatized the entire station," she said flatly. Evan blinked. "By running?" "Yes, Evan. By running. In 5G. They think you're going to liquefy." He shrugged. "Feels like a weighted blanket." Susan stared. "You need therapy." Before Evan could reply, a group of trembling Clerians approached cautiously, like scientists approaching a radioactive bear. One of them, the junior safety officer, stammered, "Human Evan, we have concerns." Evan removed his earbuds like a confused Labrador. "What kind of concerns?" The officer gestured wildly. "Your mass, your velocity, your internal organs. Surely they must be rupturing?" Evan smiled, bright and harmless. "Nah, humans are built for this stuff." Built for this stuff, a phrase that would later be carved into the station's emergency guidelines. Over the next week, Clerians followed Evan and Susan as though observing a dangerous but adorable new animal species. They watched Evan lift maintenance crates alone, crates that required 6 Clerians and an exosuit. They watched Susan drag a malfunctioning power relay out of a shaft with one arm. They witnessed Evan repair a pressurized hatch with no protective gloves. They watched Susan drink boiling hot human-grade coffee and enjoy it. Every observation triggered more safety filings. The Clerians were drowning in paperwork. Finally, the council called an emergency assembly, inviting both humans. When Susan and Evan entered the hall, they found a shimmering hologram labeled Draft, Human Containment and Behavioral Risk Manual. For the protection of Clerians and station infrastructure. Susan sat. Evan waved at the room. The Clerians recoiled. Counselor Rilo cleared his throat-signaling membrane. Humans, your species demonstrates alarming resilience. Thank you, Evan said. That was not praise. Susan crossed her arms. Look, we're not trying to cause trouble. We're just built differently. A murmur rose. Explain. So Susan did. She described Earth's fluctuating gravity, its deadly wildlife, its corrosive oceans, its burning deserts, its sub-zero poles, its oxygen-rich atmosphere, practically an accelerant, its storms, quakes, volcanic eruptions, and biomes filled with microscopic assassins called bacteria. And then she said casually, "And our children play outside in all of it." Clerians almost fainted. The counselor whispered, "The humans evolved through violence." "Not violence," Susan corrected. "Adaptation." But Evan grinned. "Mostly violence." Susan elbowed him. The council spent an hour debating whether humans were technically a natural disaster. Finally, the counselor asked, "What do you want, humans? A reduced gravity environment? A protective escort? Warning signs for your movements?" Evan and Susan exchanged a look. Then Susan leaned forward. "We want trust, respect. The chance to work beside you, not floating behind safety glass. And a jogging lane," Evan added. "A what?" the counselor choked. "A space to stretch our legs," Evan said cheerfully. "I can tone it down if you like." The council reluctantly approved, partly out of diplomacy, and partly out of fear of what would happen if they said no. 3 days later, Clerians gathered anxiously to watch the humans test their new 5G jogging lane. Susan calibrated the gravity dampeners. Evan stretched. A group of aliens whispered, "Observe! The humans prepare a ritual of controlled self-destruction." Susan shouted, "Evan, no sprinting! Start slow this time." "Got it." He did not got it. The moment the lane opened, Evan launched forward like a missile wearing sneakers. Every Clerian screamed. A shockwave rattled the viewing deck. Internal fans whined. Stabilizers shuddered. The human blurred past the observation windows, unstoppable, terrifying, weirdly cheerful. Clerians clutched each other. One frantically filed another complaint. New hazard. Human Evan achieved unsafe terminal velocity while smiling. But by the end of the week, things changed. A few brave Clerians approached the lane, stepping carefully into 5G with reinforced exosuits. They watched Evan's form, studied his balance, his stride, his breathing. 2 attempted to mimic him. They failed instantly. But they tried again, and again. Slowly. The impossible became curiosity. Curiosity became inspiration, and inspiration became progress. Months later, when the human delegation prepared to return home, the council gathered to bid them farewell. "You humans," the counselor said, "have redefined our understanding of biological limits. You have shown that strength is not always aggression, and adaptation is not always chaos." Susan smiled. "And you learned to jog a little." "A very little," the counselor clarified nervously. Evan winked. "Next time, we'll teach you push-ups." Half the chamber fainted. The ship departed amid laughter, respect, and a newfound legend born across the stars. Humans, soft, squishy, fragile-looking, were built for hell and called it home. And Clerians never again underestimated the species that could jog happily in 5 times gravity.